an arms race.
Welcome to the Heisman Trophy Preview Show, presented by Nissan.
A century and a half of college football getting ready to start the season, and a Heisman race. You know, guys, 10 years ago, we had the closest Heisman race in history when Mark Ingram edged Toby Gerhart. Maybe we're up for something else like that. Reese Davis, Joey Galloway, and the 1991 Heisman Trophy winner Desmond Howard here to preview the field. 1991.
Yes, sir.
Coming up on that 2-decade mark here pretty quickly, my friend.
I know. Tell me about it. It goes by quickly.
You know, really, as you set the field for this Heisman Trophy race as we sit here in the preseason, and things can change so quickly as history has shown us, it's pretty clear who the leaders are in terms of the favorites. Clemson quarterback and the reigning national champions, Trevor Lawrence, a 5-2 favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Just slightly behind that, Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. You see the other former Alabama quarterback and now Oklahoma starter Jalen Hurts, Adrian Martinez, and Sam Ehlinger are sitting there among the favorites. And then you can get a little bit longer odds with some other guys, including Jonathan Taylor of Wisconsin. All he's done in his first 2 years is be on pace with guys like Adrian Peterson and Herschel Walker for putting up yards, led the nation rushing last year, and is 18-1 for Wisconsin. We're going to talk about a lot of these guys and what their chances are of winning the Heisman Trophy, but you have to start really with Trevor Lawrence in Clemson.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, if you were to look up quarterback in the dictionary, Trevor Lawrence's picture would be there. He's a guy that he looks like an NFL-ready quarterback, and you know he has weapons on the outside, and that is key for a quarterback to be able to go downfield like we saw him in the playoffs, throwing balls up, guys going up making plays for him.
What do you like about him, Desmond?
I tell you what I like about him is, to me, first, his maturity. You know, I saw him this summer. I went to Clemson. This guy is an NFL-type quarterback, meaning his stature, his body. But then when he was on the field, you would see his intelligence, his football IQ. You will watch how he commanded the offense and the way that he went about his business. You're like, is he really a true freshman? I mean, really shocked me.
He is Mr. Steady. He's got a great football pedigree. He's a prototype. He's 6'6", weighs 220 pounds. In high school, he broke all of Deshaun Watson's high school records and then went on and threw for 347 yards in the national championship game against Alabama. You watch him, and this is what the good Lord had in mind when he grew up what a quarterback's supposed to look like, right?
Yeah, RD, I mean, this guy was meant to play the position. I must say, truth be told, I thought that was a very questionable decision when he came in there as a starter for Kelly Bryant. But this young man, like I said, his football IQ is off the charts. He can make all the throws. And when you watch him, his players, they like playing for him. They like playing with him. He throws the ball extremely well under pressure, extremely accurate. And he's a guy, to me, at this point, RD, he just has all the tools. And then the way he carved up Alabama's defense, that secondary in the championship game, Joey, was just outstanding.
Yeah, and he's listed at 220, but he looks bigger than that.
Without a doubt.
And that's when you see him in the pocket, he's calm because he can take a hit. He can stand in there. When you're his size, you don't have to worry about the defensive end, the defensive tackle, because you know even if they get to you, you have the ability to stand there and deliver the ball downfield with accuracy. You look outside, he has some 6'6" guys, Ross, Higgins. And so as a quarterback, that gives you that added confidence that, you know, put the ball out there. These guys can go make a play. And you see it in this young kid stepping into a situation with that offense, with that talent on the outside, with the running game behind him, gives him a confidence to go in there. If I don't mess this thing up, we will blow people out. Can't wait to see what this offense looks like this season.
You know, he's great in the pocket. The one thing we haven't seen from him that Dabo Swinney and the Clemson staff will tell, he can run. Now, he's not shifty, but he's got those long legs. He can cover some ground. He could have Heisman moments on the ground, too. Break, contain, take off, show a little sprint down the sideline. And Clemson, for all it has accomplished in this great run, winning 2 of the last 3 national championships, they are still looking for their first Heisman Trophy winner. Deshaun Watson came very close both in 2015 and 2016. And with at least 2 more years, we think only 2 more years of Trevor Lawrence, it would be hard to imagine, barring some unforeseen circumstance, that Trevor Lawrence wouldn't find a way to win the Heisman Trophy in one of those 2 years. If Lawrence has a major contender right now against him, it would be Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who was a virtuoso at the position for most of the season last year. He's got uncanny anticipation, threw for 43 touchdowns, set Alabama records last year with those great receivers out there led by Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs. Tua's a guy who certainly can make another run after being the runner-up last year.
Yeah, and had a chance to sit with Tua at the SEC Media Days. And the confidence that he's taken from the mistakes he made. And you don't get to say that much about a quarterback, but sitting there and listening to him talk about the lesson he learned at the second half of the season when he threw the 6 interceptions after going 8 games without throwing one. This guy makes plays, and he makes them because he's confident. He's able to stand there and deliver the ball. As you see him look off and throw a deep ball down the left side, you don't see quarterbacks do that. They don't have the confidence to not look and throw one out there. So Tua is a guy that can lead this Alabama team. And I've always said Alabama is better at being motivated from losses than any other team I've ever seen. And talking to Tua and knowing his talent level, this guy is going to be outstanding this year.
Yeah, if they're motivated by losses, they have great motivation coming into this season, because the last time we saw them on the field against Clemson, they got their doors blown off. Tua is a guy that, I mean, he took the college football world by storm when he came into that national championship game against Georgia and just showed to me the type of football IQ, pocket presence, and maturity that you normally don't see from a quarterback that young in a game that big. He can make all the throws, short throws. Watch this throw right here, just a slant. You want to put the ball, Joey can tell you about this, where a receiver doesn't have to break stride and he can keep going in the direction he's headed. And that's why his receivers, tight ends, running backs, they love playing with Tua. And that's why he's probably right now just number 2 on the Heisman list, slightly behind Trevor Lawrence.
Much like Trevor Lawrence, Tua has an embarrassment of riches, weapons at his disposal.
Very true. Yes,
Steve
sir.
Sarkisian back as the offensive coordinator for Alabama. You're going to see a lot of 4 wide receiver sets there. And perhaps Tua Tagovailoa will become the 3rd guy in Alabama history to win the Heisman Trophy. All of these guys, the best finishes coming during the Nick Saban era. Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram winning the trophy. Tua and A.J. McCarron being runners-up. The one thing that Alabama hasn't had is a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Tua will have the opportunity to change that this year. As we look ahead to the chase for this 85th Heisman Trophy, there are guys who get their business done on the ground. Few do it better than Taylor. Of course, Justin Herbert, Desmond has said, a potential #1 overall draft pick. And maybe it's Jalen Hurts getting a fresh start at Oklahoma, or J.K. Dobbins with the Ohio State University.
The Heisman Trophy Preview Show is presented by Nissan, premier partner of the Heisman Trophy.
Oklahoma sort of had the market cornered on Heisman Trophy winners, winning the last two different quarterbacks. First school to ever do that back-to-back with quarterbacks, with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. So how do you replace guys like that? Well, why don't you bring in former SEC Offensive Player of the Year with 7,600 yards and 70-plus touchdowns on his resume, and make him your starting quarterback. Jalen Hurts, the former Alabama star, is now going to run Lincoln Riley's offense.
As good of an athlete as you'll find anywhere in the country. And so you step into Lincoln Riley's offense. We saw what Kyler Murray did in this same set. He has the ability to take off and run, get downfield, and has the arm strength as well as anyone. And so when you watch Lincoln Riley's offense, he's thrown to wide open wide receivers for the most part. And when they're not open, nobody can tuck in and run quite like Jalen Hurts. I expect big things out of Jalen Hurts. These highlights against SEC defenses. Reese, he's going Big 12 defenses. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and he lifts weights like a fullback. But let's get off all these quarterbacks. We talked about a non-quarterback. How about Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin's tailback? 5'11". He runs very powerful. When you first see number 23, you notice one thing about him, his speed. I mean, he's one of those guys that literally, Joey, if you give him a crease, it's good night, Irene. No one's going to catch him. He runs with power, too. You'll see him breaking several tackles at the line of scrimmage. For a guy that's 5'11", about 199 pounds, I think he's extremely strong, very gifted as a tailback, and he has excellent vision, too. So I think Jonathan Taylor, of all the running backs in the country, keep an eye on this young man. He may get that trip to New York when it's all said and done in December.
Hey,
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, that dude ran for nearly 2,200 yards, but this guy, Joey, J.K. Dobbins, says he's the best running back in the country.
Yeah, and he split reps with Mike Weber the past 2 seasons and still got 1,000 yards. Mike Weber, 172 carries, 954 yards. Well, that's all going to Dobbins. I've been around Dobbins a couple times this offseason. He is focused. I've watched him in practice. He's locked in. He's all business, and expect him to carry the load for this team. They threw the ball a lot last season with Haskins. Now that load is coming to J.K. Dobbins. He's going to put up huge numbers, and he is built. He's built like a running back that can carry the load. The focus that he's shown and gotten better through his career, I'm excited to see where he takes that this season.
Yeah, he felt like last year was a bit of a failure, his own words, because his yards per carry were down by a little more than 2 yards per carry. The explosive,
and it was still 4.
It was kind of a ridiculous standard. He set the previous year better than 7 yards per carry.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's a guy, and Jonathan Taylor, I mean, through 2 years, this guy shattered the FBS record for most rushing yards through 2 years. Bright guy. Maybe Wisconsin didn't quite reach the standard it has in recent years.
Maybe the quietest 2,000 yards we've ever seen. This guy got 2,000 yards last season.
Taken for granted.
Yeah, it was taken for granted.
No doubt about it. And he averaged over 7 yards per carry, too, which is incredible for a running back. Especially in the Big Ten. That's a running conference, you know?
You know, he spent some time in the offseason working on jigsaw puzzles. He may very well piece together everything to make himself a nice little Heisman run here as well. So we finally got a couple of running backs mentioned, but...
Good, finally.
Well, there's still some quarterbacks. They're still sitting out there, like Oregon's Justin Herbert. Now, look, this may not be fair, but he can't win or lose the Heisman Trophy in the opening game against Auburn, but I would say that his candidacy is either established or it is greatly diminished. Not necessarily whether they win, but based on how he plays against Auburn.
You're 100% right, RD, and I think that game against Auburn should be his coming out party to the nation, for them to see what type of talent this young man has. Joey, this guy has like that Brett Favre ability to fit the ball in tight, very tight windows. A lot of confidence in his arm. I think when we watched him a year ago, I was really surprised at some of the throws he was able to make in double and triple coverage. Going up against Auburn, I think he's going to be able to showcase his talent to the nation and show everyone why he's a Heisman Trophy candidate. I think this guy will be in New York when it's all said and done in December, too.
Sam Ehlinger really carried the Texas offense last year. He is the undisputed leader of the Longhorns. He's kind of sitting on the periphery of this race as we start, Joe.
Yeah, and the only problem for Sam Ehlinger is it's not flashy. He accounted for 41 touchdowns. He ran for 16 touchdowns. But you would never know it because it's not like SportsCenter top 10 type highlights. And you got a guy named Kyler Murray who's ripping off these 60-yard touchdowns. But Sam Ehlinger finds ways to make plays for this Texas team. And if they can climb the hurdle of Oklahoma and win the Big 12 and Sam Ehlinger puts up the same kind of numbers, he is a guy that can be in New York in the conversation. It's just you have to watch this kid play. He gets it done.
You know, I spent some time with him this summer, too.
Did you spend time with everybody?
I gotta tell you, I don't know why everybody wants to take shots at Sam. Really?
Me either.
Talented.
Talented.
Right.
Get it? Jake Fromm is another guy that it's not always the flashiest. He's very efficient. I think he's got a better skill set than people give him credit for. And if Georgia makes that big run as expected, Fromm could be in the mix as well.
I tell you what, I've been a big fan of this young man since he was on QB1 on that Netflix special coming out of high school. He's a competitor. He fought off Justin Fields, who came into Georgia with all the hype, 5-star recruit. Fromm didn't even blink. He has a lot of great talent around him, but he lost a lot too. So I think this is going to be the year that Jake Fromm can really show you his true leadership because he's going to have some young guys he's going to have to break in outside on the peripheral. But this guy, all he does is win. Like you said, RD, it's not flashy, but he's very efficient, and he runs the quarterback position extremely well.
People that have been worried about Georgia's receivers, just look up the name George Pickens, freshman receiver. Did you guys see that one-handed catch?
Yes, sir.
Having to his receivers would appreciate that. Among those guys, who in your judgment has the best opportunity to actually win the thing?
Oh, it's tough for me. I do think that Jake Fromm, because he's playing in the SEC, he's going to have those high-profile games, and he's a guy who, at this point, because of what they've done so far at Georgia, you're still familiar with Jake Fromm's name. So I think Jake Fromm has an opportunity to be a dark horse in this race.
High-profile games, I think, is what hurts Justin Herbert's chances in this situation. The Pac-12 has been a little down. And so he won't have those big games that the entire country is sitting down watching him play. But as far as talent level, arm talent, skill, he's as good as anyone in the country. We need to see him big in big games.
You know, he's had some really really tough performances statistically. I had an opposing coach say to me this offseason, said, don't let it fool you. He said, I'm not saying the receivers aren't good. He said, but they don't always make the plays on the 50-50 balls for him that maybe Tua gets or Trevor Lawrence gets or some of the other guys get. And the thing I like about Sam Ehlinger, you mentioned the number of touchdowns. Do you know percentage-wise, he accounted for a higher percentage of his team's touchdowns than Tua or Haskins or Kyler Murray last year.
And he earns them.
Yeah, he does.
He's not running away from
You're
people.
like a
Somebody got to run through guys to get in the end zone.
He's going to earn that on September 14th, too, when they play LSU.
Yeah. The 7th, though.
7th?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Texas LSU on the 7th. We're looking forward to that. That's going to be one of the great pre-early season games, I should say. Now, there are other guys at Clemson. We've talked all this about Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne, he had 24 touchdowns last year to lead the nation. Judy won the Biletnikoff. DeAndre Swift is a guy at Georgia because of the big Heisman-type moment runs could perhaps split the allegiances if Georgia makes a run.
We talk about Jonathan Taylor having a quiet 2000. Travis Etienne. Seriously, it's like he's in the witness protection program. He is an outstanding running back with great numbers, but he sometimes gets overshadowed by Trevor Lawrence in that quarterback situation. He's as good a running back in the country.
I think you look at Jerry Jeudy because he's not he's on the same team as Tua. They're split votes, and he's not a guy who's out there returning kicks and things of that nature, so he can start to separate himself in another statistic or another category. So I think he's as talented as any receiver in the country, but because he plays for Alabama and he has Tua on his offense too, he won't be able to make it.
He might have to make do with the second Biletnikoff or something.
He better return some punts like this. That's what he better do.
And then strike that post.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
And Desmond, just in case anybody was sitting on the fence, Desmond's going to push him over and then push him over to the inside. Oh, man, you know, look at this Heisman Trophy race as we sit here in the preseason. It's hard to fathom that there could be anyone other than Trevor Lawrence or Tua Tagovailoa to win it. But look at the last 10 years. You know, you have 3 winners in the last 10 years who had never taken a snap for their school. I say it that way because Cam Newton had played a little bit for Florida. Okay. But you have Cam, Manziel, and Jameis, who hadn't taken a snap. And really the only guy on this list that you would have looked at in the preseason and said, well, yeah, he's the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and he did, is Mariota. There are a couple other guys you would have said would be on the periphery, but he would be the only favorite.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields are clipping off that piece right there, saying, hey, we haven't taken a snap, but we'll come in and put up some big numbers. Justin Fields in an interesting situation, coming off of a Haskins year, where it's like 50 touchdown passes. Justin Fields, I've seen him practice probably 4 or 5 times since he's gotten there. Each and every time, he's been better. A lot better. So the Justin Fields that will show up next week will be a very good quarterback that's going to throw the ball better than people expect.
I'm excited to see this young man because when we saw him in Georgia, he ran the ball more than he threw the ball. So I want to see what he's able to do with his arm, especially in this offense at Ohio State.
Ran the ball one time that was rather ill-advised, though not his fault. No fake punts at Ohio State. Big games. Ill-advised.
Don't bring up old stuff.
Isn't that kind? You guys know the Golden Boy, right? Won the Heisman Trophy back in '56 for a losing team. Now, some people say that these days the Heisman winner can't come from a team that doesn't win at the highest level. I'll tell you some guys who might be Heisman worthy when you come back.
For watching the Heisman Trophy Preview Show, presented by Nissan.
Paul Hornung of Notre Dame won the Heisman Trophy despite his team going 2-8. Now, there are a number of guys who have transcendent-type talent, but their teams are going to lose too much for them to win the Heisman Trophy. I'm not saying bad teams just probably lose too many games. Here's a list of guys. Desmond, Joey's giving me a hard time about Bryce Perkins making this list. You know why? Because I wanted to point this out.
Go ahead.
And you'll have a head start on perhaps a $100 question on game day later on.
Okay, cool.
2 quarterbacks in the country last year threw for at least 2,600 yards and ran for 900. You know who they are?
Well, I'm guessing Bryce Perkins.
Bryce Perkins
Bryce
is the
Perkins
only one,
won.
and Kyler Murray.
Oh, wow.
They were the only 2.
Heisman
Yeah, I'm
then,
impressed.
Huh?
The problem for some of these guys
They're
is,
gonna lose.
you know, since the playoff has started, only one guy, Lamar Jackson, has won the Heisman but not been in the playoff. And so these guys will lose some games and kind of fall off the radar at times, and that's unfortunate because there's some talent on there. Bryce Perkins, a lot of people have to find out who he played quarterback for, even though he's a great quarterback.
How about Adrian Martinez up in Nebraska? Scott Frost's second year in that offense. He was just a freshman last year, made some freshman-type mistakes, but a lot of people think that Nebraska may win the Big Ten West this year. So he may win a couple of games, get a couple of big games on this belt. He may be a nice little dark horse to look at.
I think Laviska Shenault is as versatile and talented a player as there is in the country. They've got a new coach at Colorado, and Mel Tucker. They've already taken it personally there. That
if A.J. Dillon stays healthy, he's another running back, big physical guy, though. If he stays on the field for every game, he'll put up big numbers.
Now, how about De'Aaron King at Houston, now playing from a crack, and Dana Holgerson down there in
He's
Houston.
going to put up huge numbers.
And you already set the American Conference record last year, accounting for 50 touchdowns. And Dana can get him a few more? We'll see. Those are some great players. When it comes to predictions, Joey and I are chalk-eating weasels, though I think that could be a historically close race. Desmond, on the other hand, in the vein of Paul Hornung, not that Purdue's going to have a losing record, but maybe not in the college football playoff, you've got Rondale Moore winning it.
RD, I really love this young man, what he brings to the gridiron. I mean, he's an all-purpose wizard. Last year, he averaged 170 yards per game, 12 yards per play. He has breakaway speed, excellent hand-eye coordination, balance, suddenness, quickness, everything that you want in a player who's going to be your all-purpose guy. And Joey, I think this is the best non-quarterback in the NCAA.
Yeah, he's exciting, and Twitter will be all over you all season long when he doesn't win it. But Tua's going to be against Clemson to fuel this season. Tua's going to be good.
I tell you what, Rondale Moore led the nation last year in yards after the catch. If there is a guy who could capture the imagination with plays and maybe leap over the favorites, might be him. We'll see when the season starts.